Hey everybody, what's up? It's Ehren here, Question Period Canada. Excited to bring you tonight's live review of Question Period. It's going to be exciting. I know Trudeau is in the house, so that's something to look forward to. Poilievre always is up for more insults when Trudeau's actually there live. Let's jump into it right away. We're ready to go.
Oral questions. Questions orales.
Questions orales. Let's go.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Bloc, they're not worth the cost. The Bloc Québécois voted in favour of increasing taxes on home heating throughout Canada, and they did so to save this Prime Minister's political career.
Let's get some likes.
So this is a new costly coalition.
We'll get through this French in a minute.
The Bloc and the Liberal Party, and the Minister of the Environment has confirmed that this is a coalition. He says there is a coalition in the House of Commons and that coalition includes the Bloc. The Bloc doesn't do anything for free, though. So will the Prime Minister tell us what he offered the Bloc Québécois so that they would keep him in power and support quadrupling the carbon tax? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I offer to Quebecers what I offer all Canadians. That is, the opportunity to grow in a greener, more prosperous future. Together, we are fighting climate change. There are three parties in this House of Commons fighting climate change. The Conservatives, though, they don't want to do anything to address climate change. The Conservatives don't understand that there can't be a plan for the economy if there isn't a plan to fight climate change. They go hand in hand, and we will work with all members in this House who want to fight against climate change to build a better world. Meanwhile, the Conservatives want to set us back to the Stone Age.
Back to the Stone Age, they say. The Conservatives are sending us. I don't know about that.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We're starting to starve and we're cold.
He has just mixed up the Bloc Québécois and Quebecers. Those are not one and the same, because the Bloc Québécois has abandoned Quebecers. But the Prime Minister apparently thinks that the Bloc Québécois speaks for Quebecers. The Bloc Québécois wants to radically increase taxes on Quebecers, and the Bloc Québécois now wants to keep this Prime Minister in power. The Bloc Québécois supports the Prime Minister's inflationary deficits and his centralizing policies. So, the Minister for the Environment also admitted that there is a coalition which includes the Bloc. So, once again, what did the Prime Minister offer the Bloc to get this coalition deal?
He makes a good point there. What did he offer them? What's under the separatist tree?
Mr. Speaker.
Christmas tree.
Approximately 500,000 Quebecers are still heating their homes with heating oil. All Quebec MPs should know, and that includes Bloc members, the Liberal Party members, and other. We should all understand that those who are spending money on home heating oil are spending more money, they're polluting more, and this mostly affects lower income Quebecers and Canadians. That's why we are offering to replace home heating oil with heat pumps. We'll work with all provinces who want to deliver this program to people free of charge, especially for those living on lower incomes, because we know that to build a better world, we need to do so together.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Free heat pump.
Not worth
no such thing.
Or the division after 8 years. Panicking under pressure from MPs in a region where he's plummeting in the polls. He'd paused the tax for some people in some places, but his minister said that other people should have voted Liberal if they wanted the same break. Now the panicking Prime Minister is further dividing the country with the confirmation from his Environment Minister that he's now in a coalition with the Bloc, the Separatist Party. So we have a costly carbon tax coalition that includes the Separatists. What did he promise the Separatists to get them to sign on to keeping him in power for 2 more years?
I do like that they're bringing out the word separatist again. That is what the Bloc is.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Only division in this country as to whether or not we should be doing everything we can to fight climate change is within the Conservative Party. The Canadians are unequivocal that we need to fight climate change and we need to support Canadians through that. That's why our price on pollution returns hundreds of dollars every 3 months to the average family of 4, while fighting climate change and watching our curve bend faster faster over the past 2 years than the other G7 countries. We will continue to hold Canadians together as we fight climate change while Conservatives continue to bring us backwards.
He almost threw his hands in the air. Did you see that?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's own Environment Commissioner confirmed he will not hit his own targets, and the Prime Minister has admitted that his carbon tax is not worth the cost for oil-heated homes. Now, he did that to save his political hide, but his desperation went one step further this week when he relied on the separatists to vote with him to quadruple the tax on home heating for everyone else in Canada. So the question is very clear. What did he promise the separatists to get their support to save his political hide and quadruple his tax?
I wonder what the deal was. There was probably a deal made.
Minister.
Speaker, no matter how much the Conservatives try to deny it, every single day in this country, we get closer to never using coal to generate electricity again. And now, Mr. Speaker, we're choosing to phase out home heating oil, which is dirtier, more expensive, and disproportionately relied on by lower-income Canadians. The Conservatives may try to make up all the stuff they like, but the reality is replacing home heating oil is good for Canadians when we put in heat pumps, and that's exactly what we're doing.
I'll believe it when I see it. They keep talking about a free heat pump. Somebody has to pay for the heat pump.
Speaker, after 8 years, he hasn't eliminated coal-fired electricity. He hasn't eliminated oil-powered heating in homes, and his carbon tax will not allow him to meet his own GHG targets, according to his Environment Commissioner. Now, that is the reality, that his carbon tax is not worth the cost. And that's why people, all 10 premiers, Conservative, Liberal, and NDP, are calling for him to take the tax off so Canadians will keep the heat on. Will he be fair to all Canadians, or will he sign on with the separatists to divide our country some more?
They're dropping the separatist bomb every chance they get.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It draws your attention.
I have to admit, I'm a little worried for the Leader of the Opposition. When he has to stoop to bringing up the separatist boogeyman to try and scare Canadians, he must be running out of material. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are afraid of climate change. They're afraid of the extreme weather events. They're afraid of the concerns we have about a brighter future. And what we are doing is fighting climate change every day while we build a stronger economy with greater careers, while we support Canadians every single day with the high cost of living. This is what we're delivering. He has no plan to fight climate change, no plan for the future of the economy, no plan for Canadians.
Okay. Oh my goodness. That's a bunch of bullshit, but he's getting fired up. It's always more entertaining when he's yelling and insulting. It's more fun. What's Greg going to do about that? Because now he's going to have to tell the Prime Minister to calm down. But he won't say that. He won't do it.
I'm going to ask all honourable colleagues to please.
He's up there like some kind of eunuch.
Taking or making noises while a member or one of our colleagues has the floor. It's important for us to hear the questions. It's important for us to hear the answers.
Sit down, Greg Fergus.
Mr. Speaker, this morning, the Prime Minister repeated the government's stance regarding asking Israel for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip.
It's got a nice handkerchief.
And this stance has been called for many countries and organizations across the world.
It's a nice tie, too.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening to repeated calls for a ceasefire, even Anthony Blinken's calls. So Israel's attitude is truly deplorable. Would the Prime Minister agree that it's time to call for a ceasefire? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are asking for a humanitarian pause. That would help get the hostages out of Israel, out of the Gaza Strip, as well as others who are citizens of other countries out of Gaza, and it would also allow for humanitarian aid to get to Gaza. We need, in order to get humanitarian help, to support that. We need to support a two-state solution. We need to put an end to all this conflict, because the images we're seeing on TV every night are heartbreaking to Canadians and to everyone in the world. We need to continue to work for the peace and security of all. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, I regret to observe that the State of Israel, in fact, has broken the trust that the international community had in them. The international community trusted them to act reasonably toward the people of Gaza. Thousands of people have died needlessly. Israel is occupying Gaza, but it's gone on for a long time. So there needs to be a strong action by the international community. The international community needs to take action to request a ceasefire for international peace. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker.
Try to cover him
As we
up.
all know, we are working with our partners around the world in order to protect civilians. We are working to restore peace and safety for all people of the region, and we will continue to work towards that. But as parliamentarians and as Canadians, Mr. Speaker, we need to be very worried about the divisiveness and hatred and fear-mongering that we're seeing in some parts of in Canada. We need to stand up to Islamophobia. We need to stand up to anti-Semitism. We need to stand up to all forms of hatred, because we need to remember who we are as Canadians. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
The Liberal and Conservative corporate coalition may strike again today. We put forward a plan to help Canadians with their home heating bill, to help Canadians tackle the climate crisis and make big oil and gas pay for it. Now, environmental organizations are on board, but climate delay liberals and climate deny conservatives will back the profits of big oil again. So how can the Prime Minister and the leader of the Conservative Party justify voting against this?
I find anything he says confusing, because he could take the government down, have an election,
Speaker,
see who the people
it was
want.
With confusion
But
and
he doesn't do that.
consternation that I noted the way the NDP voted with the Conservatives against one of the most successful measures Canada has ever seen in the fight against climate change. Putting a price on pollution is exactly how we've managed to bend the curve on our emissions faster than other G7 countries over the past 2 years. How we are moving forward with global leadership on the fight against climate change. Seeing the NDP vote with the Conservatives against a price on pollution is something that has disappointed millions of progressives across this country.
Not a Trudeau fan at all, but it is a little more entertaining when he's in the House.
Colleagues,
Oh,
I'm going to
Lord.
ask you please to exercise great restraint. I especially asked a colleague from York Simcoe to allow other members to please when they have the floor, to hold the floor until it is that colleague's turn to speak.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Minister has literally missed every single target he set on emissions. Voici notre plan.
Here is our plan. We want to make heating bills less expensive for all Canadians. We want to fight climate change, and we want big oil to pay more. Many organizations that work for the environment agree with this, but the Liberal Conservative CEO coalition will continue to protect big oil. How can the Prime Minister vote against our plan? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
None of that makes sense with the NDP and the coalition government. None of
I
it.
know there are progressives across Canada who were deeply disappointed to see the NDP vote with the Conservatives against our most successful climate change fighting measure, the most successful one in the history of Canada, and that is carbon pricing. putting a price on pollution across Canada. We are fighting climate change. This measure fights climate change. This measure helps us invest in renewable energy, and it also helps us put more money in the pockets of 8 of 10 families in provinces where carbon pricing applies. We will continue to fight climate change, and we hope the NDP will join us once again.
Then I have Chef.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Most tragic and heartbreaking to see
There
these
we
two
go.
squabbling in this way. The Prime Minister
pretty
was
funny.
so disappointed in the
For
NDP
Pierre.
leader's flip-flop on carbon tax for heat, but the good news for the Prime Minister is the NDP leader has flip-flopped on his flip-flop and now supports the Prime Minister's plan to quadruple the tax. This, with 2 million Canadians, a record-smashing number going to a food bank. Will the Prime Minister create another carve-out on the carbon tax for farmers so that Canadians can afford to eat?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We know, Mr. Speaker, that farmers are always focused on being good stewards of the land, and we are working with them in investing, in supporting them in many different ways to ensure that we can continue to put good quality, affordable food on people's tables right across the country, and that's what we're going to continue to do, Mr. Speaker. Farmers and indeed Canadians from coast to coast to coast know that as we fight climate change, as we put more money in people's pockets every 3 months with hundreds of dollars with the pollution price return, we're going to continue to step up in building a strong economy for tomorrow, something the Conservatives simply don't understand.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is quadrupling his carbon tax on the farmers who make the food, quadrupling the tax on the truckers who ship the food, therefore quadrupling the tax on all who buy the food. Good news is there is a common sense Conservative bill that's passed through the House and in the Senate where the Prime Minister's senators are holding it up. Will the Prime Minister once again cave and allow another carve-out on the carbon tax for farmers? Yes or no?
It's a yes or no question. I bet you we don't get a yes or no answer. I bet you we don't.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Many people living in rural areas across the country, including many farmers, continue to be stuck heating their homes with home heating oil. It is dirtier, it is more expensive, and it is something that is expensive to replace. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we are stepping up with measures that are going to deliver heat pumps to families right across the country, the 1.2 million households across this country, in every part of this country, relying on home heating oil, so we can help them fight climate change and save money at the same time. That's our plan. The Conservatives have no plan.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Our common sense plan is found in Bill C-234, which would give another carve-out to farmers on the carbon tax. And the Prime Minister has claimed that he won't cave again. He says there will be no more carve-outs. We're asking him to keep in mind there are 2 million people who have to go to the food bank every month because of his policies. Will he put his ego and pride aside and ask his Liberal senators to pass common sense bill C-324 to axe the tax and create a carbon tax carve-out for our farmers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, farmers across this country know the costs of climate change. They know the costs of extreme weather events, whether it be floods or fires or more intense storms. Farmers are worried about their future, worried about their kids' future, worried about the country's future. That's why we put forward a plan that is reducing our emissions and growing our economy at the same time while putting more money in Canadians' pockets. The Conservatives have no plan to fight climate change, no plan for the future of the economy, no plan for future generations. We will continue to do what's necessary to support Canadians, including farmers, long into the future. That's it.
Which Canadians are making more money off of climate
The Prime
change?
Minister won't answer a simple question. It's about the common sense Conservative bill to carve out
And the carbon
farming
tax.
from the carbon tax. But I understand why he feels he's in a bind, because his environment minister said, as long as I am environment minister, there will be no more exceptions to carbon pricing. That implies that he would resign if there was another carve-out. Will the Prime Minister sacrifice his crazy carbon tax minister and support our common sense bill to take the tax off?
So that's interesting. I don't know what Stephen Guilbeault said, but he's Minister of the Environment, right? And he's saying that if they do what they did for Atlantic Canadians, that he's going to resign?
If I could,
Interesting.
the colleagues, colleagues should know that we cannot use language which calls into question the character of honourable members, individual members. I hear an explanation from the Leader of the Opposition, and I will repeat that so that we can clarify the record. The Leader of the Opposition made a correction saying that he was referring to the policy and not the person. So, but
I guess.
That's certain. And I thank the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for making that clarification, because otherwise that language would clearly be unparliamentary. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think we'll all be waiting for a long list of corrections and factual errors from the Leader of the Official Opposition if we go down this road. The fact of the matter, Mr. Speaker, for millions of Canadians who understand that climate change poses an existential threat to our country, to our well-being, to our economy, they need action. They expect a government with a plan. They expect a government to deliver on that plan, and that is exactly what we have been doing for 8 years. Meanwhile, the only plan the Conservatives put forward are cuts. Cuts to services, cuts to program, cuts to rebates for Canadians, and yes, cuts to the most successful measure to reduce climate change emissions that this country has ever seen. When is he going to come forward with a real plan?
He does that weird little shoulder pump thing. He's got weird body
The
language.
Honourable
It's
Leader of
strange.
the Opposition.
It is crazy to quadruple the carbon tax on our farmers when 2 million people are going to a food bank every month. So now the Minister of the Environment has threatened to resign if there are new carbon tax carve-outs. We have a common sense Conservative bill that would carve out the carbon tax for farmers. All it needs is for the Prime Minister to give his senators permission to pass it. Will the Prime Minister please just cave at least one more time and allow a carve out on the carbon tax for our farmers? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I won't use the word crazy, but I will say it is deeply, deeply irresponsible for the Conservative Party of Canada continue to deny that taking action against climate change is important, to continue to deny that climate change is a real threat to Canadians and to our economy. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we have put forward measures that both fight climate change and put more money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families, and we're going to continue to fight climate change because the cost of inaction against climate change is far more than the cost of action.
Where do these 8 out of 10 families live? They don't live around here. Getting more back from the carbon tax than they're having to spend.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Tax isn't
Not
working.
true.
He's missed every single target. He's on track to miss his 2030 targets, and Canada is ranked 58th out of 63 on climate action. Mr. Speaker, the question is about our farmers. There's a bill C-234, a common sense Conservative bill to carve out farmers from the carbon tax. All it needs is for the Prime Minister to give his senators permission to adopt this carve-out. Will the Prime Minister stand up to his Environment Minister and stand up for farmers and let Bill C-234 pass and allow this carve-out to go ahead?
Le trait,
get some
the
light
Right
skull.
Honourable Prime Minister.
I will admit, it doesn't happen often, but every now and then, I am a little bit envious of the position that the Leader of the Opposition finds himself in, of being able to criticize on the one hand that we aren't doing enough to fight climate change, and then on the other hand, say that we need to stop everything we're doing to fight climate change. Fortunately, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are smarter than he takes them for. Canadians know the only way to build a strong economy for the future is to fight climate change at the same time. That is exactly what we are doing, and until he puts forward a plan that is responsible and real on fighting climate change and growing the economy, Canadians will continue to dismiss him.
That's right. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly.
Oh, the block again?
Speaker,
The block
the next 2
always.
seconds will be very difficult. I'm going to quote Adil Sharkawi. Allah deal with the people of Gaza and with Zionists. Exterminate people. Do not spare anyone. Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister feel that
Why are they
Sharkawi
whispering?
committed a crime under the criminal code by making that statement in public? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, those words are unacceptable and anti-Semitic. Those words spoken by a preacher are an insult to the lives and hope of millions of people across the world, including millions who lost their lives during the Holocaust because they were Jewish. We will always stand up to anti-Semitism. We will always be there to promote peace and compassion among peoples throughout the world.
He's just so
The
insincere.
honourable member for
Right?
Chambly. Mr. Speaker, 3 hours ahead of question period, I informed the Prime Minister that I would ask this question. So I want a clear, specific answer.
Interesting.
The preacher who said that, are his words criminal? And should they be treated as a crime and punished as a crime? The government appointed someone to serve as a liaison between communities. Currently, Ms. El Gawabi. Do we need her, though?
Le très honorable Premier ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's true that there are people saying unacceptable things around the world, and here in Canada, too. What we need to do in this place and throughout the country is to encourage people to listen, to be compassionate. We need to return to our basic values as Canadians. We need to have empathy and compassion for the suffering of our neighbors. Now, as for criminal prosecution and crimes, the police and relevant authorities will make those decisions, and I'm counting on them to make those decisions.
Pretty full of it. Return to our ways of being
This panicking
Canadians.
Prime Minister is not worth the cost or the division after 8 years. He'd recently announced that he would pause his carbon tax on heat for some people in some places where he's plummeting the polls and his caucus is revolting. He claims this is not regional, but his own rural affairs minister said that if people on the prairies want the same pause, they should elect more Liberals. Can he confirm whether he endorses these comments or whether he condemns them?
How's he going to dodge that one?
The Right Honourable
He's not even
Prime
going to
Minister.
mention his minister.
Perhaps
Not
the
even
Conservatives
mention
think
it.
that phasing out coal was divisive because some parts of the country had already phased out coal, and it only targeted the parts of the country that still rely on coal to generate electricity. Mr. Speaker, we are united in our desire to fight climate change as Canadians. We are united in our desire to support Canadians who need it through into a better future. That's why banning and phasing out home heating oil by by replacing them with heat pumps right across the country is an approach that will unite Canadians. The only division is amongst Conservatives who still think that climate change is fake.
That's right.
He's a funny bird.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Stating falsehoods about our position will not distract from the original question. Here is the question. The Minister of Rural Development said that if people in the prairies wanted a pause on the carbon tax for home heat, they should elect more Liberals. Does the Prime Minister denounce these comments, or does he agree with them?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, tens of thousands of people across the prairies are getting the chance to replace their home heating oil with with thermal pumps, with heat pumps, because we have put forward programs to help in that transition as we pause the price on pollution for people in the prairies who rely on home heating oil. Tens of thousands of them. We are there for people in the prairies who want to save thousands of dollars a year, who want to get heat pumps, who want to fight climate change. Why aren't the Conservatives there for those people?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Justin doesn't usually get on my
there for
nerves.
all
Today is a
Canadians.
little bit on my nerves.
But this is really troubling. We thought that perhaps it was a gaffe when his Liberal Rural Affairs Minister said that the prairies would have to elect more Liberals if they wanted a pause. And if this really is just a fair policy that applies evenly across the country, then why would you have to elect more of any particular party in your region to benefit from it? So I'll just give him one last chance. If he can't answer it, we'll assume that he agrees with her. Does he agree with his Rural Affairs Minister that if the prairies want to pause on the carbon tax paying, they have to elect more Liberals? Yes or no?
How can you possibly dodge this question? But he will.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No, Mr. Speaker, because people
No,
in the prairies
he answered
who
no.
heat with home heating oil already are benefiting from a pause on the price of carbon, on the carbon price. That's because, Mr. Speaker, this pause that we put in applies right across the country. So the tens of thousands of Canadians in rural Canada, in the prairies, are going to be able to benefit from the transition to heat pumps. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to step up, including in doubling the rural top-up on the carbon price rebate. We will continue to deliver for Canadians right across the country, and we will continue to be there for all Canadians, including women.
They cut him off. Greg cut him off. He hit the button. See him? They're going back and forth a lot
The
today.
Honourable Leader
A
of the
lot.
Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister only divides to distract. That's all he ever does when he gets into trouble. He divides people along every possible battle line. He did that with the carbon tax carve-out for only some in a region where his support is plummeting and his caucus is revolting. And for 10 days, he refused to condemn the comments of his own Liberal minister who said this policy was applying based on how people voted. And now he signs on with the separatists to divide Canadians again. Will he, instead of dividing Canadians, reverse the policies that are driving them to the food bank?
2 million people
Right
go to the
Honourable
food
Prime
bank
Minister.
a month in
Mr. Speaker,
Canada?
we see the Conservatives' approach to partisan politics and to personal attacks. The reality is, when we stood with the 80 to 90% of Canadians who chose to get vaccinated, they called us divisive. When we chose to stand with women across this country who want to control their own bodies, they called us divisive. When we stand with the 2 LGBTQI+ kids who are being discriminated against in schools across this country, they call us divisive, Mr. Speaker. I ask Canadians, who are dividing Canadians more than Conservatives?
Oh.
With their choices, with their politics.
He gets the fireworks for that one, guys. He popped. He snapped. That's the most I've seen him put out. It's the most I've seen him like fly off the handle. Ay. Greg's gonna try to get this situation back under control, but no one's going to listen. They'll just get bored of him talking and then probably quiet down. See, he adds so much time to the question period. Just this, like, it's been 30 seconds since Trudeau was talking, and he does it, say, 20 times a session, so there's 10 minutes. It's a real issue. To me, it is. Like, look how long this has been going on, guys. This is just wild.
I thank the Honourable Whip.
Something else.
Opposition Leader Whip for helping out to get some more. And I ask all members, please, to exercise a restraint so that we can hear the next question. The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
He's special, man. He's a
People
weirdo.
are struggling to find a
Another
home
weirdo.
they can afford. And this federal government has the power, the land, and the resources to end the housing crisis. On one side, we've got the corporate-controlled conservatives that want to sell off our public land to their rich investor friends. That helps no one. But on the other side, we've got liberals who are openly admitting that their plan is to use public lands to build luxury homes. How can this Prime Minister justify using public lands to build homes that people can't afford?
If he really wanted to make a point,
The Right
he would
Honourable Prime Minister.
make the government
Mr. Speaker, that's simply not
fail
true.
and have an
We know
election,
Canadians
right?
are worried about paying their rent, finding an apartment, or buying a home. That's why
frustrating.
we're working on affordable housing and affordable housing affordability right across the country. It's why we put forward the Affordable Housing and Groceries Act, which helps build more affordable apartments.
He's on
by cutting
paper
the
now.
GST on construction. Housing advocates and developers have described this move as a game changer that will get more affordable housing built. It's why it's essential that all members work with us to move these important measures forward.
The Honourable Member from Edmonton Strathcona.
Every single Canadian deserves to have health care when they need it. Public, universally accessible health care. But the Conservative leader, Danielle Smith, just got caught trying to make health care more chaotic and more bureaucratic. She is not hiring more health care workers, not treating health care workers with respect, and leaving the door wide open for more privatization. Sound familiar? This is right out of the Conservative playbook.
Yes.
And on the Liberals' watch. Why are the Liberal government sitting on their hands while Alberta has their health care privatized?
Colleagues, soon the chair will be issuing some reflections upon the issue that was made by several House leaders from different parties who had raised a question of the relevance of questions in terms of to the administration of government or questions which would be directed to committee chairs. That will be coming shortly, but in the meantime, I'll ask all members to make sure that they do ask questions which are relevant. I see that the Right Honourable Prime Minister is on his feet to reply, so I will allow the Right Honourable Prime Minister to respond to this question.
Mr. Speaker, it is a relevant question because we have taken actions in the past to draw back transfers and claw back transfers to provinces that haven't been obeying the Canada Health Act, and we will continue to do that. So let me be clear, we will always defend Canada's access to health care and won't hesitate to use all available tools under the Canada Health Act to protect this right. We expect all provinces and territories to adhere to the Act when they make decisions regarding Canadians' access to health care. The Minister of Health will be closely reviewing the details of the Alberta Premier's plan, but we remain unequivocal when it comes to access to our healthcare system and access to pension supports. We will always stand with Canadians.
The Honourable Member from Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the planet is burning, and 72% of Canadians are worried about climate change. Sadly, the Leader of the Opposition does not appear to be one of them. He stated that he will do nothing to reduce our emissions nor work with the global community within the Paris Accord to protect our future. In fact, just like Donald Trump, the Leader of the Opposition will take